Hello, I'm Roger Sutton. I'm Chief Executive of CERA. It's been 18 months since the ground first shook in Canterbury. And over these last 18 months, we've been really busy, looking after our houses, looking after our land, working in new jobs. And in the middle of all this, I think it's very, very easy to forget about our health. So with me today is a panel of experts who know about health, who know about how to help us get through these times. And with me today, joining us is David Mates, who's Chief Executive of the Canterbury District Health Board, Raymond Pink, who's the Medical Officer of Health, Jeremy Baker, who's a general practitioner working especially around the area of mental health, and Caroline Bell, who's a specialist who works in anxiety issues. So, starting with you, David, the hospital, of course, was very much centre stage in those days and those weeks following the big quakes. How are things going there at the hospital at the moment? What should we know about how your operations are?
Well, firstly, it's been pretty remarkable how the whole Canterbury health systems, kind of responded to, to the earthquake, and in many respects, it's quite amazing that we actually haven't imploded. And part of that is actually Canterbury has been working as a single system for quite a period of time. And when we've lost 106 hospital beds, 630 odd age residential care beds, a number of community pharmacies, a number of general practices that have not been able to operate, it's really been remarkable that despite all of that, actually health services were doing more than what we were doing before the earthquake. And we've got just over 9,000 hospital rooms that are damaged. Some of the really simple repairs that we're doing, the main Parkside Hospital, every staircase is needing to be cut out of there. And that in itself is about a 52-week piece of work. And that's the really, really simple stuff. And we're out of about 17 buildings at the moment, and again, ongoing issues are meaning that we're going to be having a number of facilities that we will struggle to continue to provide services from. We've still got about 700 people that are working in different places than what they were on the 22nd of February. And despite that, we're still providing more services, but it is very, very much on a knife edge. And it's a knife edge both in terms of the community, in terms of the hospitals, and in terms of actually how we're going to continue to meet the challenges over this next 12 or 18 months, the next 2 or 3 years.
So, tell us about those next 2 or 3 years. What sort of changes can we expect to see?
Well, just to give an example, this year we're going to be managing about 20,000 people in a community setting that if you were anywhere else in the country, you would probably be hospitalised. And part of that is, has been possible with organised general practice, organised community services, and the interactions between the hospital and the community setting. We've got a lot more services that have been set up to support people to stay in their own homes and to stay well and to recover quicker from there. But right at this particular point, we have no further capacity to get anything wrong in the Canterbury health system. We get any part of that out of balance,
everything starts falling over.
Everything starts grinding to a standstill very quickly.
Ramon, tell us about the public. I mean, a lot of people are living in houses affected by liquefaction. They're living in places that just aren't as warm as they were before. Tell us about some of those sort of health challenges we've got out there.
Well, I think one of the biggest threats that we've faced since earthquakes began has been the threat of infection. And so, for instance, with liquefaction, with the upwelling of the groundwater and the silt, you have to assume that that's been contaminated by sewage from broken pipes, sewer pipes. And so the encouragement for people to wear protective clothing to prevent themselves from becoming infected, and the bugs that you find in liquefaction are mainly those that are going to cause vomiting and diarrhoea. Those are the messages that we've been having to re-emphasise. Dust, or the liquefaction dust, is another issue. The dust has small particles in it. For some, the irritation to eyes and nose and throat. For some, exacerbation of their chronic illnesses like asthma or chronic respiratory illness. That has been, a concern.
So is that liquefaction? It is dangerous. It is infectious. I mean, is it worse when it's wet? It's just coming out of the ground, or is it when it's blowing around with dust? Just explain that.
Absolutely, good points, because when it's wet, that's, I think, where your threat of gastroenteritic illness is likely to be. And we did surveillance and we were very fortunate that we didn't have that. When it's dry, the inhalation of the dust particles.
It's not going to make. It's not going to give you a horrible tummy bug.
No, it's not going to give you. That's not going to give you a horrible tummy bug. No, but it can irritate previous illnesses that you have. We don't believe we've done respiratory surveillance since the earthquakes have happened, and we haven't seen any significant rise in respiratory illness, including pneumonia, since over the last 15 to 18 months. But one of the things that we are encouraging people to do is go back to your GP if those are issues for you. The other thing is mould. You know, if you get liquefaction under your home particularly, you get that damp coming up, the proliferation of mould, and the likely release of spores, which can cause allergy for some people, or obviously living in a cold home when we're facing winter. Those are other concerns, and we're encouraging people, you know, talk to the environmental team at the City Council to give you advice around these things. So these threats of infection are very real for people, and so those basic things of hygiene and taking advice where you need it is
so
important.
still in the garden from liquefaction. Is that actually of any danger to me? Can I leave the kids to play in it?
I wouldn't let your kids play in the silt.
Because it may have been infected by some sewage at some stage.
Absolutely. What we do know, and we've analysed this stuff, we do know that the bugs that were in it when it came up are still likely to be in it. When it dries and it becomes dusty, you're not going to get the bugs in it, but you can get those other respiratory things. So if you've still got liquefaction in your yard, move it away, keep your kids away.
Give it away and don't let your kids play in it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Jeremy, so tell us about the physics. You know, tell us about what sort of issues, what kind of extra issues are being presented at GPs at the moment with all this stuff that's going on out there.
Well, I think as Ramon said, the levels of respiratory disease didn't come to light, and you talk to the specialist and they say, great, perhaps the particle was too large to cause deep-seated lung problems. But you've got other issues. Heart problems have been a significant issue, increased in ischemic events, chest pains. You've had, fortunately, not too much of a rise in the tummy bugs, which is great. But there's these little glands we have in our bodies called the adrenal glands, which I think everybody knows about, and they've been ticking away at a rate about 2 to 3 times above what they're expected to do, for longer than they're ever expected to do. And so you have this overriding physical effect that just lodges in your muscles, it lodges in your chest, you feel distressed, but you haven't actually got a heart problem, you've just got muscle tension, and that's causing sleep problems, that's causing loss of your routines, your lifestyles, you're becoming exhausted. So the GPs are always trying to case manage these new types of issues, not sure exactly will we get to a problem underneath, or is it again a sleep problem, is it a stress problem once more? And you're working quite hard, and your staff are working hard, and the community's working hard to get a grip across the board, really.
So that's kind of the physical stuff, and the physical stuff's obviously important, but the physical stuff is something we're all much more willing to talk about. But the mental health stuff, you know, that stress stuff, you know, there must be a lot more stuff coming up at GPs at the moment, Jeremy.
And I think if you looked at every physical problem, there's a psychological problem that's walked through the door as well. And the anxieties, the stresses, preying on that resilience that we hopefully have had as Kiwis, but gently undermining it, and a few more events, a few large shocks, and suddenly that extra stuff that you've been bearing is coming to the surface. And at the end of the day, you're seeing kids not sleeping, you're seeing separation. But the overall sense, well, I can't see it ending, so how much hope have I got for the future? Can I see a future?
Caroline, you work in the sort of anxiety area, and you know, I think everyone's sort of anxious as a result of all these quakes. You know, a big truck goes past, we think, gee, there's something else about to hit us. Tell us about how you help with how you work with people in communities to manage that anxiety and all those sort of issues.
Okay, so what we're seeing is just like you say, a huge spectrum of response where I think pretty much everyone is feeling on edge, tense, not sleeping well, can't concentrate, can't make decisions, very jumpy when trucks go by. all those kind of things. And they've been going on and on and on. And I think what we're seeing more now is actual fatigue and exhaustion with running with those really high levels all the time. And that's probably the biggest thing that I think we're seeing across the community. We are also seeing people with very severe problems who are very terrified, really, of going into buildings or having memories about what they experienced. So that's at the one extreme. And then there's everything in between. And then people who say they're feeling absolutely nothing and they're completely fine. And they may well be. And I think the other thing is we move along that spectrum. Some days we're okay, some days we're not okay, some days we don't sleep, some days we do sleep. And so we're all going through that. And I think that's a really big thing to emphasise, is that we are all going through this. You know, these are very abnormal events. And we hear lots of talk about the new normal, which I think tends to downplay how abnormal all these experiences that we've had and what we're feeling are. You know, I used to sleep fine and now I don't. You know, I used to be able to concentrate things and now I can't. And I think we're all experiencing that kind of thing. So it's trying to manage a way through that. Looking after ourselves, and I think that is really important. So that's something that we haven't done like this before. We really, really need to prioritise that. So it's not just telling you to do something, it's actually prioritising that you do go for a walk, you do go for a bike ride, you do have a bath, things like that. And really taking time for yourself is really, really important. To try and help us sleep better, not drinking too much alcohol and then living on coffee the next day.
I always have the three rules: exercise, sleep, and now no alcohol. Are they rules that really apply to everybody, or am I too much for, you know, too pure?
Well, I think that would be ideal.
Well, but you know, seriously, I mean, I think all those, you know, extra stimulants, and then you need to.
Yeah.
How does that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are right things to work on. I'm not sure that everyone could stick rigidly to that. There might be some issues, Roger, but you know, but I think it's working within that. They are very good guidelines, you know, and it sounds so simple, but actually it's really, really important things to do. Yep. And I think recognising as well, being tolerant to other people. We're all in this, we're all feeling stressed, we're all exhausted, so we're all going to get irritable and angry with someone or something when it doesn't go right. And taking one step at a time. Yep. You know, we're not going to solve the house, we're not going to solve the insurance issue in one phone call. It takes a time, and trying to set yourself goals that are achievable is really helpful. Any
other strategies for people who are anxious and finding life really hard?
The real challenge has been the community systems as well, the support systems. Yep. Those that have had relationships, been able to stay close to their families, they're always going to be good protectors against anxiety, depression. The sense of hope or not, the sense of having something to look forward to outside the city, or another, can you keep your music going? Can you keep your walking? Can you keep your relationships and communications going? And those are things that are going to be fed from the top as well. So if we feel that the leaders are not supporting us or giving us that message, we're going to struggle to hold it together for ourselves. So I think that, you know, you've got challenges for the types of community support, but also from the expert support, which one's going to be the best in giving the answer when you just
What do you see from the health? Are you seeing these sort of trends in the health system?
Yeah,
heart issues, anxiety?
Certainly the kind of cardiac one has been, you know, the immediate aftermath of the September earthquakes, and that probably did a favour for a number of people that were thinking about having a cardiac event, because it seemed to bring on an awful lot. But I think generally things are just taking longer to do. You know, kind of when you go to see, you know, kind of a doctor or another health professional, things are just, it's not the simple, straightforward elements that are sitting there. You know, people are struggling still, I think, to make sense of things, but the sense of certainty and hope is really, really important. And one of the things we're seeing quite a lot now is people saying, well, actually, if we can see a future in the next 5 to 6 years, we want to be part of it.
Yep.
Actually, beyond that, actually, that's my professional career. You know, kind of why, or what, you know, kind of why would I stay around? And I think that's becoming much more real for a lot of people. And I think that's one of our collective challenges, is how we give that certainty, that sense of, actually, this is going to be the greatest place to live in the world. Things are going to get better, and actually our role in you know, kind of what that means for me as an individual to feel actually there is hope, there is a future, and this is a place where we really want to live.
Well, you got any comments from where you sit about managing our mental health and our health generally in these times?
Yes, look, I really appreciate the comments of the rest of the panel, and I was thinking after February 22, I got a job offer in Auckland actually, same role. And I wrestled with, well, do I stay here and commit myself to this rebuild? Tough it out or no. And I had to really, I swung on that one, I have to say. But the thing is, there are also unique opportunities here as well, and that changed my thinking. But just referring back to what David said, there is that challenge for us as professionals and at a whole variety of different levels of people saying, well, should I stay, should I go? My family have left, actually, they've gone to Australia. And you kind of feel a bit disjointed from them, and I'm sure lots of people are in that similar situation. So encouraging one another, giving that concrete kind of hope. And I guess, you know, we're going into winter. Winter is flu season. What are the concrete things that we can do? Yeah, cold houses. What are the concrete things we can do? You know, flu, vaccinate yourself. You know, we're providing a unique opportunity in Canterbury this winter for those under 18 and over 6 months of age. We know that kids are, you know, little infectious bombs because they're all clustered together, share everything, and we believe if we can focus in this area, it's got benefit for the community, and that's kind of one of those concrete things that you can do. The other thing is that in the midst of all of these things that we've been talking about, we're also in the middle of a whooping cough epidemic. And, you know, we've had a significant number of kiddies ending up in hospital with this. It's a deadly disease affecting those mainly under 1. We've had to send some kiddies up to Auckland, which is incredibly distressing. You know,
that's that family separation thing again.
Yeah, that's on top of all of the things that we've been describing. So what's a concrete, practical thing, you know? Encouraging mums, caregivers, dads to get your kiddies immunised at 6 weeks, 3 months, 5 months to protect your little ones during this time. So I guess it's those practical, concrete things that we know that we can do. We can sort of tick a box that can help us in these situations.
I mean, is there any concepts we want to get out there about when people do start feeling unwell, how you need to act more quickly these days? I mean, I always think you never regret going and seeing your GP early. But I mean, a lot of GPs seem to be really, I mean, am I going to out of place? Really busy at the moment. Have we lost GPs in the city?
We've lost some. We've lost some 1 or 2 medical centres, I think. And we get tired. But I'd make a plea that the real strength is going to be in the communities amongst those that have knowledge, and even if you're hurting yourself,
fundamentally step up and look after each other.
Look beyond your own circumstance if you can.
That's where those neighbourhood things are good too, aren't they? You just chat, you go and see someone or have a chat to someone where, you know, we were talking beforehand, you know, all around this table, we're all anxious. Are we sleeping well? No, we're all feeling those kinds of things. And often hearing that that our colleagues, our friends, our neighbours are feeling the same things as us, it stops us from feeling, I'm the only one. Oh, it's a relief. And so it's like, well, what are you doing? Oh, this is what I'm doing, and this is where you should go. And yes, I am saying, you know, if you want to get your flu vaccine, get it before the flu season starts, then you're likely to be safe from it. Sorry to keep harping on that, Roger, but it's a practical thing that we can do.
But it is so important that talking with people, sharing experiences is still one of the best bits for people recovering.
Yes.
And really getting to grips with a really unique set of circumstances.
I think just from my own observations, it's the whole sort of neighbourhood thing. You know, there was a neighbourhood party the other day. And making sure we're getting out there and making those linkages with people we wouldn't normally see. But making sure we are just talking, supporting and
But it's actually great. When you go to it, it's really, really good. You feel better, you're involved in something that really matters, and it's a really great feeling. And that wasn't there before. So that's a newer thing. I
think life
really
is much harder here, but we do have a much stronger
Yeah.
feeling of community. We all know our neighbours much better than we ever knew them before.
Absolutely.
Very important.
We have a date night, my wife and I, every week. And sometimes all we do is go for a drive. It's just getting out of the house and getting time for ourselves to talk just on our own. We have 4 kids, teenagers down to tots. But it's actually just making sure that you have that connection and that communication. And you actually you prioritise that. It's really, really important. It's just a simple thing, but we have found it's been really, really important over
And that, I think that's really important. It is really prioritising that, looking after ourselves like that, and not just being exhausted, vegging out in front of the TV, really making an effort to do something, and you feel so much better for it.
I think that, like, the date nights are important. I mean, I try and have my date night as well, but also it's just like a date night with a couple of the kids as well. Because at the moment, I think a lot of us are getting home and we're so tired. We don't actually say, right, I'm actually going to do an hour with George tonight, or Harry, or Samantha, or whatever, and actually making sure we do that time and you do something special, because we sometimes forget with our kids, a lot of them are really struggling as well.
Roger, I think we should say a big thank you to all those households outside Christchurch that gave their homes for us to go to relax. They took us in, and I think that was huge. And to see ourselves beyond our circumstances, again, is a great thing that they've done for us. And I hope they keep listening to our pain, our hurt. Otherwise, we might just feel isolated and look inward again.
Oh, I think it's very easy for the rest of the country to think, you know, the shakings slowed down again or stopped, and now everything's back to normal. Well, you know, if you're living in a broken house and you're not sure where that job's carrying on and you don't have grandma next door, life is still far from normal. So the rest of the country really does need to appreciate that, and that's one of my jobs, is trying to make sure the rest of the country really gets that, so they carry on giving us the support as well.
And I think it's part of it is our reality down here is not everyone else's reality. You know, people are getting on, doing their own things. It's not lack of caring. It's just really hard to understand if you're not living and, you know, kind of working in that type of environment. But those bits in terms of just, you know, kind of people continuing to talk, and if people do have a health concern, you know, to pick up the phone and phone their general practice, even after hours, they'll get through to a real person, and someone that is able to give some advice and help them also, you know, kind of with the kind of need to be made.
And GPs have a personal mobile for Roger to seek strength and comfort from.
Any GP who wants to ring me 24 hours a day, I leave my phone on at all times, any time, Jeremy. I'll be happy to take any of you and your colleagues' calls. David, the elderly. Tell us about how the elderly are managing and what we can do to support them.
Well, they're one of our most vulnerable groups in the community, and interesting that we've got 34,000 people that are 74 years and older in Canterbury at the moment, and most of those living in Christchurch. And that, you know, kind of that's a group that's been under an enormous amount of pressure. We've seen the aged residential care changes and some of the tough decisions made about shifting people to other parts of the country, knowing full well that many may not have, may not have been able to have come back in that type of environment. But we're going to be looking at the elderly increasing up to about 56,000 in the next 10 years. They are staying in this community.
It's almost a doubling in the size of that community.
It is, and they're staying in our community, and yet many of them are in homes that are broken, and the importance of appropriate support structures in place for them.
What else is the panel saying around the elderly?
I think some have done extremely well. They've been courageous. They've hung in. They've had almost more resilience than some of the younger people. Perhaps it's their life experiences. On the other side of the ledger, some have suffered. Some have suffered more Alzheimer's, confusion, loss of hope, and that's been a tragedy.
Yeah, and I think those issues complicate the anxiety. So if you are more confused or you've got physical health problems, not so steady on your feet, the fear of the earthquakes and being able to get out or get help is really, really more frightening.
So for people watching this who've got an elderly neighbour or an elderly uncle or aunt, what are we doing for them? What should we be doing to look after those people at the moment?
I think an important part is actually checking in, neighbours checking in. One of the biggest concerns we've got too is actually falls in the community. Often elderly, when they fall and they break their neck or femur in particular, it's often a precursor for a general decline in health that happens pretty quickly after that. And so, you know, trying to make sure that environments are as safe as possible, that any obstacles and uneven things are out of the way are really, really important to try and minimise that impact.
And keeping people involved in their community things, because community is really, really important. You know, going to church, going to local groups that they've done before, trying to encourage that to get going again.
So that's
really
also
help.
Maybe working with some of those people to say, what other outings do you want each week? What are the other things that maybe you gave up a year ago or 2 years ago? What are those things we can help you restart, and making sure you have a solid routine to make sure it happens. If you don't take them, someone else takes them.
But some of them have also got lots to give. And they themselves can sit down with families and just be part of a continuum of the family.
Look after the kids while we do date night.
Or
Well, no, but seriously, but I think in this environment we do.
Gives them some
identity. And in fact, date night doesn't have to be the 3 hours. It can be, 45 minutes, but the elderly feel they've actually done something. Yeah, that's right.
advise what they do on the date night.
Thank you, Jeremy.
We are seeing a few, particularly some of the older males, that some have got less well-developed networks or connections sitting there, and I think that's that 65, 75-year-old male group is an area of real vulnerability at the moment. They're, again, simplistically, that group probably coping less well than the general elderly population. But there are some very, very resilient elderly people there that we've got a lot to learn from.
Well, I guess the other thing I would observe was just the elderly and their insurance stuff. I think for a lot of us, we deal with those sort of people down the end of a phone at a call centre, resolving issues. But for a lot of the elderly, I think those issues are really hard. And I think that's a moment where we all absolutely need to be stepping up and working with our people who aren't as confident doing those sort of things, because if they don't know how to manage their insurance, they're going to feel that they're about to lose their major asset, or generally their life is going to become much, much more difficult. Anxiety issues with elderly people, Caroline?
Oh, absolutely. Just like all of us. But I think it can be, like Jeremy said, some people really resilient, maybe feeling that they've been through a lot already. But other people, and I think it is the complications of the physical effects, tripping in their homes, things being not right, that can complicate things more and make people less willing to go out. They just stay at home and everything else then falls apart.
So I think the whole thing about after every major aftershock, just going to see our neighbours and just those very, very simple words of how are you are so powerful.
It's actually good for us to do too. You feel better when you've done that. I feel better walking down the hill and asking someone.
Yes, I agree. I think it's actually going out and helping is often a really good way of dealing with our own anxiety, isn't it?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity, that's it.
And that smile and how are you is still one of the most important things.
We've talked a bit about going off and getting help, and I went to see my GP today and it wasn't free. How is it for a lot of people? It's very difficult times. Should people not be going to see the doctor because they haven't got the money? How does it work in this modern world?
I think if you've got a doubt, you go, because the GPs, I think, have been prepped to know that it may not all be physical, and they know there's going to be stuff sitting beneath the surface. So our encouragement is you go, and there can be financial support for you. The DHB's made it generous of us. So if
you've got genuine health issues, go and see your GP, and you should almost never be turned away. They're one going to do the right thing. And be open about your financial situation.
Be open with the financial situation, and if people genuinely need support there will be the support
Even if
there
they're
for
not
them.
Sure that if they've got a need, they can go. They may not know if it's genuine.
And we'd much prefer people to be making contact than thinking, actually, I can't afford to go, and then that kind of rolling into a major issue further down the track.
And go and see your GP rather than just turning up at the Accident and Emergency Department, which is no longer called the Accident and Emergency Department, it's just called the Emergency Department.
Well, in terms of first point of call, general practice, and again, 24 hours a day, you phone in the middle of the night, there'll be someone there that's going to answer the call. If you've got an urgent illness going into the one of the 3 24-hour, after our general practice services, and if you're really critically ill, and then going to the emergency department with that, and if we can keep that in balance, it does mean that everyone's going to be able to access health in the most appropriate way.
That's really good, guys. Thank you very much for participating in this panel discussion. If people do need further help, as we say, start with your GP or the 24-hour medical practice. But generally, if you want support, you can also just ring the CERA helpline, which is 0800 ring CERA, and they will also be able to direct you to the right places to get you support. Thank you.